The soft hum of the lights and the distant echo of city traffic outside the windows, it gave me space to think. Or at least that's what I believed until I became aware of him, Daniel Mercer, my manager. The one everyone respected not because he demanded it, but because he never had to. He carried himself with calm authority. Always composed, always measured, the kind of person who made stressful situations feel manageable just by being present. He was in his mid-30s, sharp but approachable, with a few strands of gray at his temples. I was focused on my screen when I felt it, that strange sensation of being watched, subtle but undeniable. And when I looked up, there he was, leaning slightly against the doorway of his office, his eyes fixed on me. An expression I couldn't quite interpret, not stern, not casual, something in between that made my heart beat faster. "You're still here?" he asked, his voice smooth but quieter than usual, like the silence around us demanded it. I nodded, trying to keep my tone steady as I explained I had a few things left to wrap up. Though suddenly even speaking felt different, like every word carried more weight than it should have. He walked over slowly, not in a rush, stopping beside my desk as he glanced at my work, then at me. Not just a compliment, but something deeper, something that made my chest tighten slightly. The quiet intensity of his attention, the kind that makes you aware of every little movement, every breath. And for a moment neither of us spoke, the silence stretching between us in a way that felt charged rather than empty, until I finally looked up again and found him still watching me, not my work, not the desk, but me. And it made my pulse quicken in a way I couldn't explain. "There's no rush," he said softly, glancing around the empty office. "It's just us here." And those words settled heavily in the air, making the space feel smaller, more intimate, like the walls had quietly closed in without me noticing. I swallowed, unsure how to respond. Caught somewhere between curiosity and unease, and before I could say anything else, he stepped a little closer. Not enough to cross any obvious boundary, but enough that I could sense his presence more clearly. The faint scent of his cologne, the warmth of him standing near. "I've noticed you've seemed distracted lately," he added. His tone still calm but carrying an undercurrent I couldn't quite place, and I struggled to find the right words. Because how could I explain something I didn't even fully understand myself? Saying it was just work stress, but my voice betrayed me slightly, and he seemed to notice. A small, knowing smile forming as he nodded. "It happens," he said, his hand briefly resting on my arm. In a gesture that was simple, almost reassuring, yet it sent an unexpected ripple through me, making me suddenly aware of everything at once, my heartbeat, my breath, the closeness of the moment. And when he pulled his hand back, it left behind a strange emptiness that I couldn't ignore. After that, he returned to his desk, but nothing felt the same, the silence between us heavier now, filled with unspoken thoughts that neither of us acknowledged, and I tried to focus on my work, but it was impossible. My mind replaying every second of that interaction, every glance, every word, until eventually he stood again. That whatever had just happened would dissolve into nothing. But instead he paused, turning the lock with a quiet click before looking back at me. And something about that small action made my breath catch, not out of fear, but out of the realization that this moment wasn't accidental. That whatever this was, it was real and unfolding right in front of me. And there was a clarity in his expression now, a quiet honesty that hadn't been there before. As if whatever hesitation had existed between us had finally given way. I didn't move, didn't step back. Even though a part of me knew I probably should have, because another part of me didn't want to. And when he reached out, brushing a strand of hair away from my face, his touch was gentle, almost tentative, like he was giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed there, caught in the moment. And when he leaned in, the distance between us disappearing, it felt inevitable, like something that had been building quietly. Not rushed, not overwhelming, just enough to make everything else fade into the background. After that night, things changed in ways that were impossible to ignore. Every interaction carried a new layer of meaning. Conversations stretching beyond work, lingering in that space between professional and personal. Until it became something we couldn't easily define, something unspoken yet understood. And while part of me felt drawn deeper into it, another part couldn't ignore the risk. But then the whispers started, quiet but persistent, and suddenly it wasn't just something between us anymore. It was something others were beginning to question, and when I heard someone mention it outright, a wave of panic set in. I went straight to his office, closing the door behind me as I told him what I'd heard. And for the first time since all of this began, I saw uncertainty in his expression, the kind that made everything feel more real than ever. "We need to be careful," I said, my voice unsteady. And he nodded, though it was clear he didn't like the idea of pretending nothing was happening. "I don't want to lose this," he admitted quietly, and that honesty only made it harder. Because I didn't want to lose it either, but wanting something didn't make it right or safe. As the days passed, the tension only grew until eventually it reached a point where it couldn't be ignored. Management started asking questions, subtle at first but increasingly direct, and the weight of it all became impossible to carry. And then one evening he asked me to meet him outside, away from the office. And when I arrived, sitting beside him on a quiet bench, the air felt heavy with everything that didn't need to be said. "I'm leaving," he said finally, the words simple but devastating. And for a moment I couldn't respond, couldn't process how something that had felt so consuming could end so abruptly. "This went further than it should have," he added, not with regret exactly, but with an understanding of reality that neither of us could ignore anymore. I nodded slowly, knowing he was right even if I didn't want him to be. And as I stood to leave, I took one last look at him, committing the moment to memory, before turning away, stepping back into a world that suddenly felt quieter, emptier, yet undeniably clearer. Knowing that some experiences don't last forever, but they leave a mark that lingers long after they're over.